Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be talking about something really special, the very first Star Wars video game ever, released all the way back in 1982. That's right, Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back.
1982.
Yeah. And we've got a great lineup of sources to help us break this down. We've got Wikipedia and fandom, a giant bomb overview, which is always fun, and a Gamer Rant retrospective. So we should be able to get a pretty good picture of this game.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So the mission here is, well, it's multifaceted, right? We want to uncover the legacy of this game, see how it all began, but also, did it actually manage to capture the magic of Empire? And thinking bigger picture, what does this tell us about those early days of video game adaptations? When Hollywood was just starting to realize, hey, these games, maybe they're more than just a fad?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. 1982, right? That's before VCRs were even common in most homes.
Oh, for sure.
So to be able to experience Star Wars, in your living room, interact with it in a way, that was groundbreaking.
Absolutely. And to think that the company behind this pioneering game was, well, none other than Parker Brothers, the folks known for Monopoly, Risk, all those classic board games.
You don't typically think video games when you think Parker Brothers.
Right. You think like family game night,
Exactly.
But they were the ones who brought us the very first Star Wars video game experience.
And what an experience it was. Now, they decided to focus specifically on the Battle of Hoth.
Okay. Makes sense. Super iconic.
Yeah, and even more specifically than that, just the Snowspeeder versus AT-AT fight.
Okay, so they really zeroed in on that one key part of the battle.
Right, and the game itself is a side-scrolling shooter. So, you're seeing everything from the side as you move across the screen. And your goal, your mission, is to take down as many of those AT-ATs as you can before they reach Echo Base.
Okay. Now, I gotta say, I have seen some screenshots of this game, and man, it is simple, even for 1982. I mean, I know graphics back then weren't exactly what they are today, but still. The Gamer On article, they really hit on that simplicity. It's basically just two vehicle models, the Snowspeeder and the AT-AT, and the backgrounds are super rudimentary.
Oh, yeah.
But somehow, it still reads as the Battle of Hoth.
Yeah. It's really amazing what they were able to do with such limited technology. I mean, the Atari 2600, which was the most popular console at the time, it had 128 bytes of RAM?
Wow. My phone has a gazillion times that.
Exactly. So to create a recognizable game world, even a simplified one, with that kind of hardware, it's a real testament to the ingenuity of those early developers.
Yeah, they had to be incredibly creative, really think outside the box to make those limitations work for them. It's almost an art form in itself.
Oh, absolutely. They had to boil everything down to its essence. What are the absolute core elements that we need to capture the feel of this battle?
Yeah, and leave the rest up to the player's imagination.
Exactly. So let's dig into the actual gameplay a bit.
Okay, let's do it.
The Wikipedia article mentions that those AT-ATs, they were tough, really tough.
Oh, yeah. How tough are we talking?
Well, on the Atari, it took a whopping 48 hits to destroy just one of them.
48?
48 hits.
Wow. That's way more than you'd expect, even for a boss fight or something.
Yeah, it definitely speaks to the mindset of game design back then. Games were designed to be hard. Really test your reflexes and your patience.
So it wasn't all about, fun and enjoyment.
Well, there was fun to be had, but it was a different kind of fun, the kind you get from overcoming a really tough challenge.
The satisfaction of, finally beating that level that's been giving you nightmares?
Exactly. Think about those old arcade games like Pac-Man or Donkey Kong. Simple mechanics, but man, were they hard.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You had to be, perfectly precise with your movements. One wrong step and you're toast.
Exactly. And that kind of, that intensity, that constant feeling of being on edge, that was a big part of the appeal back then. You were constantly pushing yourself to survive just a little bit longer.
Okay. I can see that. And I read somewhere that the AT-ATs, they actually changed color as they took damage.
That's right. The giant bomb overview, they point that out as a prime example of how developers had to use visual cues to help the player.
Yeah.
They couldn't rely on fancy graphics or detailed health bars or anything like that.
Right.
So those color changes, they became a way to communicate vital information quickly and effectively. At a glance, you could tell how much damage you'd inflicted on an AT-AT.
That's actually really smart when you think about it.
Oh.
Like, working within the limitations of the technology to create a clear and intuitive gameplay experience. Speaking of gameplay, I did hear there was, like, a weak spot on those walkers, right? Something about a flashing port you could target for an instant kill.
Yeah, that's true. But hitting that shot, it was, well, let's just say it wasn't easy.
Oh, I bet.
It was like trying to thread a needle while riding a roller coaster.
I can imagine.
But, added an element of risk and reward to the gameplay. Do you play it safe and chip away at the walker's health slowly but surely?
Right.
Or do you go for the quick, risky shot and try to take it down in one go?
Yeah.
It gave players a choice, a way to approach the game strategically, even within the relative simplicity of it all.
I love that. Even in a game this basic, there's still that layer of strategy involved. But, it's got me thinking, did this game even have a win condition? I mean, you're facing, like, endless waves of these AT-ATs, right? Was there any way to actually defeat the Empire?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
I'm intrigued.
Both the Wikipedia article and a particularly colorful review by science fiction author Harlan Ellison, they both point out that, well, you couldn't actually win this game.
Wait, really?
Yeah, like there was no way to destroy all the walkers, save Echo Base, and have those triumphant end credits roll.
So there's no way to achieve the heroic rebel victory?
Nope. The game ends when you either lose all your speeders or the walkers reach the base.
Oh, wow.
So you're essentially just delaying the inevitable.
That's so fascinating. It's like they captured the desperate struggle of the rebels in that scene, but without the Hollywood ending.
Yeah.
You're fighting a losing battle from the start.
Right. And Ellison, he really hated that. Like, really hated it.
Oh, yeah.
He called the game an analog for the myth of Sisyphus.
Oh, wow. That's pretty harsh.
Yeah. Sisyphus, the guy condemned to endlessly push a boulder uphill only to have it roll back down every time.
Right.
Ellison felt like that's what playing The Empire Strikes Back was like. Just this pointless, futile struggle against an unwinnable scenario.
I can see how some players would find that frustrating, especially those used to, clear objectives and a sense of accomplishment when you win.
Oh, yeah.
But it also says a lot about early game design, doesn't it? Like, it wasn't always about achieving a goal or reaching a happy ending.
Right.
Sometimes the challenge itself, the act of pushing back against impossible odds, that was the core of the experience.
Absolutely. And, it's worth considering that maybe, just maybe, this design choice also reflected the limitations of the technology at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, creating a true win scenario where you actually defeat the Empire and all that might have been just too complex for the Atari 2600 to handle.
Right. It required a lot more processing power, memory, all that.
Exactly. So they had to work within those constraints and find a way to create a compelling gameplay experience, even if it meant sacrificing a traditional victory condition. But even with those limitations, even with that lack of a true win, the game was a massive commercial success. Oh, yeah. Wikipedia says it was one of the best-selling games of 1982, right up there with Frogger.
Wow, Frogger. That's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show the power of the Star Wars brand, even in those early days of video game adaptations.
Yeah.
Fans were clearly hungry for any way to experience that universe, even in a simplified 8-bit form.
Absolutely. And it's not like everyone hated the game, right?
Right.
We talked about Ellison's less than glowing review.
Yeah.
But I did see that video magazine. They actually praised the graphics and the sound design. They said it was pretty impressive for the time.
Yeah. And it's important to remember the context here. What might seem primitive by today's standards, those blocky AT-ATs and pixelated Snowspeeders.
Right.
Back then, that was cutting edge.
Yeah.
They were pushing the boundaries of what home consoles could do visually. I could just imagine kids huddled around their TVs, jaws dropped, totally mesmerized by what they were seeing.
Oh, absolutely. Like, this is the future of entertainment.
Right.
So we've got this game. It's simple, yet challenging. It gets a mixed reception from critics, but it's a smash hit with the public.
Uh-huh.
What kind of lasting impact did The Empire Strikes Back have on the world of gaming?
Well, according to Gamerand, it paved the way for over 100 Star Wars games that followed.
Over 100.
Over 100.
Wow.
It was the first step into this vast and ever-expanding galaxy of interactive storytelling. From those humble 8-bit beginnings to the massive open-world adventures we have today, It's really incredible to see how far things have come.
Yeah, and it's not just about the quantity, right? It's
Right.
about the evolution of game design itself. This game, with its focus on a single iconic battle, its emphasis on challenge and endurance, it laid the groundwork for so many genres and mechanics that would define video games in the years to come. It's like those early developers were planting a seed. And from that seed grew an entire forest of Star Wars gaming experiences.
That's a great analogy. A whole forest.
Yeah. But, speaking of those developers, I'm still kind of stuck on that what if you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
What if they had tried to create a sprawling, open-world Star Wars game back in 1982? What would that even look like? I mean, can you even imagine?
It's definitely a challenge for the imagination.
Right.
We're talking about trying to squeeze an entire galaxy far, far away into the limited hardware of the Atari 2600.
So no lightsaber duels in Cloud City or asteroid field chases, no exploring the vastness of space in the Millennium Falcon.
Well, not exactly. We'd be talking about a very different kind of open world. A very, very different kind.
Yeah.
I think even basic scrolling is a technical challenge back then.
Right.
So imagine instead of this, seamless 3D environment, you have a series of interconnected screens,
Okay.
each one representing a key location from the film.
So instead of flying smoothly from Hoth to Dagobah, you'd be jumping between these static screens. Interesting. So what kind of locations could they realistically include?
Well, you definitely have to have the Hawk base, of course.
Of course.
Maybe a simplified version of the Dagobah Swamp.
Okay.
And perhaps a very blocky rendition of Cloud City.
Okay.
But each location would need to be designed with the Atari's limitations in mind.
Right.
Minimal detail, simple graphics, very few moving objects.
It'd be fascinating to see how they'd represent those iconic scenes or characters with such limited visuals. Could you even have a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader in this hypothetical open world?
It'd have to be very, very abstract.
Right.
Maybe just a clash of flashing pixels to represent the lightsabers.
Right.
The real challenge would be capturing the epic narrative of Empire within these constraints.
Yeah.
Imagine the story unfolding through text-based descriptions
Okay.
and simple dialogue boxes.
Well, almost like an interactive choose-your-own-adventure book. Huh. That's such a departure from the cinematic storytelling we're used to in modern Star Wars games.
Right.
But I can also see how it could be really engaging in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
Forcing players to use their imaginations more to fill in those gaps.
Absolutely. It would put more emphasis on dialogue,
Okay.
player choice,
Uh-huh.
and the consequences of those
It's
choices.
just less about the spectacle and more about the power of the narrative.
Exactly. And player agency within this simplified but evocative world.
So to sum up this hypothetical 1982 open world Star Wars game, we're talking visually primitive but narratively ambitious.
That's a great way to put it.
Do you think it would have been a success?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the Star Wars brand was already a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
And the novelty of an open world experience on a home console could have been a major selling point.
Sure.
But overcoming those technical limitations,
Yeah.
that would have been a monumental task.
It would have been a gamble for sure, but part of me wishes they had tried just to see what kind of crazy innovative world they would have created.
It's a tantalizing thought experiment, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It reminds us that even with limited technology, passionate developers can achieve incredible things.
This whole deep dive has been such a fascinating journey. We've gone from the snowy battlefields of Hoth to the outer limits of imagination, exploring the origins of Star Wars video games and the creative spirit behind those early adaptations.
It's amazing to see how far games have come since then. From those humble 8-bit beginnings to the sprawling immersive worlds we experience today.
But sometimes it's good to look back at those early pioneers.
Yeah.
Those who dared to dream big despite the limitations they faced.
Absolutely.
Their efforts paved the way for the incredible Star Wars gaming experiences we have today.
So next time you fire up your favorite Star Wars game, take a moment to appreciate those who came before.
Yeah.
Those who dared to imagine a galaxy far, far away, one pixel at a time.
And maybe their story will inspire you to create something incredible, to push the boundaries of what's possible in your own world, no matter the limitations you face. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
I mean, no, not really. We'd be talking about a very different kind of open world, a very, very different kind. Imagine instead of, like we have now these seamless 3D environments, imagine a series of interconnected screens, each one representing a key location from the film.
Okay, so instead of like flying smoothly from Hoth to Dagobah, you'd be jumping between these static screens.
Exactly, yeah.
Interesting. So what kind of locations could they realistically include?
Well, you definitely have to have the Hoth base, of course.
Of course.
Maybe a simplified version of the Dagobah Swamp, and perhaps a very blocky rendition of Cloud City. But each location would need to be designed with the Atari's limitations in mind. Minimal detail, simple graphics, very few movement objects.
It'd be fascinating to see how they'd represent those like iconic scenes or characters with such limited visuals. Like, could you even have a lightsaber duel with Darth Vader in this hypothetical open world?
It would have to be very, very abstract, maybe just a clash of flashing pixels to represent the lightsabers. The real challenge, though, would be capturing the epic narrative of Empire within these constraints. Imagine the story unfolding through, like, text-based descriptions and simple dialogue boxes.
So almost like an interactive choose-your-own-adventure book.
Exactly.
Huh. That's such a departure from the cinematic storytelling we're used to in modern Star Wars games. But I can also see how it could be really engaging in a different way. Forcing players to use their imaginations more to fill in those gaps.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It would put more emphasis on dialogue, player choice, and the consequences of those choices.
So it's less about the spectacle and more about like the power of the narrative.
Exactly. And player agency within this simplified and evocative world.
So to sum up this hypothetical 1982 open world Star Wars game we're talking, visually primitive, but narratively ambitious.
That's a great way to put it.
Do you think it would have been a success?
It's hard to say for sure. I mean, the Star Wars brand was already a force to be reckoned with, and the novelty of an open-world experience on a home console could have been a major selling point. But overcoming those technical limitations would have been a monumental task.
It would have been a gamble, for sure. But part of me wishes they had tried just to see what kind of crazy, innovative world they would have created.
It's a tantalizing thought experiment, isn't it?
Yeah.
It reminds us that even with limited technology, passionate developers can achieve incredible things.
This whole deep dive has been such a fascinating journey. We've gone from the snowy battlefields of Hoth to the outer limits of imagination, exploring the origins of Star Wars video games and the creative spirit behind those early adaptations.
It's amazing to see how far games have come since then. From those humble 8-bit beginnings to the sprawling, immersive worlds we experience today.
But sometimes it's good to look back at those early pioneers, those who dared to dream big despite the limitations they faced. Their efforts paved the way for the incredible Star Wars gaming experiences we have today.
So next time you fire up your favorite Star Wars game, take a moment to appreciate those who came before. Those who dared to imagine a galaxy far, far away, one pixel at a time.
And maybe their story will inspire you to create something incredible, to push the boundaries of what's possible in your own world no matter the limitations you face. Until next time, may the Force be with you.